Walter, you can just take a seat wherever you find a seat.
Thank you.
I didn't make more coffee though. So you can, if you want more coffee, you can just make it yourself. What's up, everyone, and welcome to yet another. Still have not figured out if it's going to be called Coffee with Ola or not, but it's
Shredders in Sweden getting coffee, talking guitars.
something like that. I mean, it's neutral. It's
Yeah.
not whiskey with Ola. Or
Do you have coffee?
For me, it's too late
Oh,
to have coffee.
Then you better not call the show that. No,
No,
don't lie to the people.
There is one. I made today's coffee, so that's
He did.
close enough. But yeah, I'm very excited to have Doc Coyle here from Bad Wolves. God forbid. Very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being. This is the first time we actually meet, and
No, we didn't meet it. We met at NAMM briefly.
probably.
I
met
think
him
just
now.
like very
Yeah,
briefly, like
right.
maybe a year or two ago.
Awesome. You just came from. You had a press day today here in Stockholm, but did you play yesterday or the day before in
We played the day
Warsaw?
before yesterday. We did 2 shows in Poland. Bad Wolves opened up for 3 days grace, and it was absolutely insane. I'd only been to Poland about a year and a half ago. I was playing with Darkest Hour.
Yes.
And we played this little hole in the wall. There was
Right.
maybe 80 people there.
Yeah.
The dressing room was a literal dungeon.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And it didn't give me the best impression of Poland. I came back and everything was amazing. So my apologies to Poland. You are the best.
Great. Awesome to hear that. So, could you please tell me, and my viewers, obviously, a little bit about yourself? I mean, where were you from? When you started playing guitar, and like, what's the story?
I'm from New Brunswick, New Jersey, and which is a college town, home of Rutgers University.
Right.
Both my parents are musicians.
Okay.
They were in the same band. My father's a piano player and currently a piano teacher. Been teaching for however many decades. My mother was a jazz singer.
Oh wow.
And currently a DJ.
Oh, there you go.
So yes, I grew up in a very, very musical, eclectic house. And, but most of the music I was hearing, especially, my father was, jazz, Miles Davis, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, things like that. And he's, my father was very much into, because he grew up in the kind of late 60s, early 70s, where he went against the Black Sabbaths and the Led Zeppelins, and he went kind of the other way. But despite that, growing up in a house that didn't really reinforce rock music or hard rock music, my brother and I just kind of discovered Guns N' Roses and Queen and Metallica and Alice in Chains and MTV. And so I probably started playing when I was around 12 years old. Don't really know what it was. Probably seeing Slash looking cool, playing on top of a piano, or something like that, or just that. Specifically, I would say November Rain and Bohemian Rhapsody. That each song, the peak of the song, is a guitar part.
Yeah.
And so something about that was very like, oh, that guy's kind of important, and the sound was just very magnetic to me. So I found a beat up old acoustic. I don't even know where it was. Out of tune, you could barely play it. The strings were, 2 inches off it, but I just was plucking around, figuring out with no encouragement, with no internet or any instruction. And I guess my father saw me messing around with it. And then a woman who's dating at the time named Robin, who were still a really good family friend, lent my brother and I an Ibanez Les Paul custom, not custom, copy.
Yeah.
Sorry. Les Paul copy. And that was like the first real guitar we had, and it kind of all started from there.
That's cool. So, just a little side note. I sneak creeped on your Facebook feed.
Okay.
It's funny that you mentioned your parents because I saw your parents making posts about you and just seem very proud about what you're doing right now. Have they always been this supportive with what you're doing and the choices you've been making?
Yeah, I mean. Like I said, with just the thing with the guitar with my father, and it would be Christmas time, and it's like, here's the Metallica live shit binge and purge
Yeah.
set and an amp because I think the thing that I think respected about it was that it wasn't he wasn't pushing music on us. We were doing it all on our own.
Yeah.
And he saw that everything. And before I was playing music, I was drawing comic books, and we grew up in the inner city where if you were outside doing stuff, it was probably bad stuff.
Right.
So if you stayed inside and focused on an activity or something creative, it really kept you out of trouble. And I think so. Our parents were really encouraging, and my grandparents were also both of my sets of grandparents were extremely encouraging. Like my grandfather loaned the band, like before we were called God Forbid, when we had some different names. He lent us like the family RV, and we took that because we wanted to go to Ohio to make a demo, and he like taught our friend how to drive it. Like, we weren't that young at that point. We were like kind of high school age, but the other guys were older.
Yeah.
But they were, they knew we were doing something positive. It wasn't about, oh, you're gonna make a bunch of money doing this, or it's an investment. Like they weren't looking at it that way. It was just no, they like this, and
pure encouragement.
Yeah, just it's, and our mindset was just there was no grand plan. It was just, this is something you're into. It's just a passion and fun and all that stuff. And we weren't even that good back then, It wasn't about that.
No.
It was just having a focus. I don't know.
With that, you said like guitar heroes, like Slash would probably be your first guitar hero. Did you have any other guitar heroes like that?
I mean, even to this day, he's my favorite guitar player.
Like top number one.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of tone, writing, just the way his solos are composed, the simplicity, the feel. You hear three notes, you know who it is.
Exactly.
And also the consistency. Like I listen to some of the solo records. I feel like he's gotten better as a guitar player through the years. Has maintained relevance, and like you go to one of those Guns N' Roses shows now, and you're just, they play 3 hours, and the guy's just wailing. I'm like, my fingers would fall off. I had to do that many guitar solos, and you could just tell how seriously he takes it and how much he still works on technique and still cares about songwriting. I think some of his later stuff is some of the best songs he's written. But yeah, I mean, from that era, I think really the kind of double-headed situation of Mustaine and Hetfield. Because to me, Hetfield was really the heavy right hand, the tightness, the chunk, but then Mustaine, that a lot of people when they think of Megadeth, for me it's really about the picking and the finesse, and the kind of this way they would like pick through individual notes of a chord and a certain kind of tightness to it.
Okay.
That's something, and also the melodic sense of Megadeth really.
So more like the efficiency of the picking, or
it was.
I mean, it's so different. Metallica and
there was
Megadeth
just something.
so
there was something more elegant. About it that
while
really,
Metallica is more of the
meat and
plugging.
potatoes.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously they have their beautiful moments and all of that, but something about that, and then of course Marty Friedman's playing was even to this day. It's like I listen to it and I just don't even understand what's where that guy came from and how he was doing what he was doing when he was doing. But then there's also, Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains is one of my favorite guitar players because he's so economical and great tone. Every note seems like it's the right note. And then obviously being a great songwriter, great vocalist. But then I kind of fell down the rabbit hole of extreme metal. And that kind of started with Headbangers Ball, and seeing Slayer and seeing Pantera, Sepultura, and then kind of getting into the local music scene, the hardcore scene, discovering local radio station in New Jersey called WSOU 89.5. That's the first time I heard Carcass, first time I heard At the Gates. And then you kind of start getting into that world and going down the rabbit hole. And we get, you probably remember this back in the day, they'd have these like Nuclear Blast and Earache compilations. And you buy like the videotape and you discover 5, 10, 15 bands. First time I heard like Dimmu Borgir or Gorefest or Hypocrisy or, Brutal Truth and, just all that stuff. And it's the funny thing about extreme music is, especially coming from where I'm coming from, it was, you first hear it and then it doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah.
But for some reason you keep going back.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so I kind of went through that phase, and I can, go through all, whether it's, Mike Amat or Bill Steer, from Carcass, or Meshuggah was such a huge influence, going back to like the Nun EP and things like that. And then the local hardcore scene, there was so many bands, whether it was Overcast or For the Love of, Candiria, Dillinger Escape Plan.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, God forbid, like we were this mishmash of all these different influences of what was going on at that time in kind of mid-late 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then it's funny, but then if you fast forward a couple years, then I kind of went back and started getting back into Radiohead and, Fiona Apple, and kind of went the other way and kind of got more in touch with becoming a more diverse kind of musician.
Kind of like when you mature in a way. I mean, like when you're a kid, you hear this extreme music and you just like want more. And like you never heard anything like that before. Like, whoa, what the hell is this? And you go even further and further. And then you kind of, when you heard it all, you kind of take a step back, maybe listen to what else is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think basically what happened with me, I can't really speak to everyone else, is that I had a period of 6 to 8 years where I listened to music strictly as a guitar player.
Right.
And that's what I was getting out of it, was what was going on with the musicianship. That's crazy. So I'm listening to Cryptopsy and I'm listening to Oppressor, and I'm just like, this is the craziest thing I could find. And then I kind of realized that was, when it comes to songwriting, that's not really the best way to look at things. So I spent 3, 4, 5 years almost untraining myself and to try and listen to music like a non-musician, because I think it makes things more enjoyable. Yeah. Right? Because you can not almost think behind the scenes. You can actually you get out of the way of just thinking about process and just enjoy a song. Yes. And then it's also the idea of that's what's, I think, going to make you write better songs, is because at a certain point, I didn't just want to write music for other musicians.
No. Were you a co-founder of God Forbid, or?
Yeah. I mean, it was so God Forbid, really from the beginning, the pre-God Forbid era. It was same 4 guys. It was myself, my brother Dallas, Byron, and Corey, vocals and drums, and then so that 4 guys was like 96. That was before we God Forbid, and then 98, our bass player John joined, and we changed the name to God Forbid, and that was that same lineup from 98 to 2009.
Wow, that's impressive, actually.
Yeah.
So current bands, Vegas Nerve.
Yes.
And now also Bad Wolves. And you also played together with another YouTuber, the Metal Cohen, in a band called Metal. And I mean, you have also filled in like Guitar for Lamb of God. You've toured when they toured with Metallica, and you filled in on playing bass with Trivium, Unearth, and Darkest Hour. And I mean, you work with so many names. I mean, when I just Googled you or whatever, like Body Count, Jamie Jasta, it's like the list goes on.
Yeah, jammed in a band, Mass Mental, with Rob Trujillo, Metallica. Wow. It was a really cool project.
So we've been friends on Facebook for a while. And even though we haven't talked that much, I mean, I see what you're doing. And whenever I see you show up in my feed, it seems like you always have a lot of things going on for you. And it gives me the impression that you're a hustler. You really, I mean, you seem to like to keep yourself busy. Has it always been like this, or is it?
Well, I think when things started, one, I think there's a couple elements there. One, the idea that social media became an integral part of what a kind of independent musician does. Yes. And I would extend that to really anyone in almost any field that relies on self-promotion. And that could be running your own business or
gaming industry, movie, whatever.
Anything, right? Anything where you're kind of centered around yourself. And I think this is, probably something that changed around the late, 2000s going to the 2010s, where, we all started to kind of realize that we are all kind of brands. Right. And as kind of dehumanizing as that sounds, it's a reality that either you have to embrace or you get kind of flushed away with the tide. So basically had a situation where, God forbid, the writing was on the wall that the band was losing popularity.
Yeah.
And this thing that I thought I was probably going to do for the rest of my life, I'm not going to do for the rest of my life. I didn't know at the time I was going to quit the band, but I knew that the band would probably have to take a smaller role in my life, and I'd have to figure out other things to do to get by.
Yes.
And I looked around, and coming from the world we came from, which was the hardcore scene, you would see a lot of people, like a band would break up, and most of those people would not. Oh, it's not like they would break up and they go on and start the next big band. They go back to school. They leave. They were done.
Oh, I mean, even the Haunted did that. I mean, they took years off. They went to school and took a degree or whatever. Yeah. I mean, around the same time actually.
Yeah. So, but I have to say is when I got asked to fill in for Lamb of God and for Mark, at the time I did not feel capable. Like I was capable, but I didn't see myself as that person.
No.
And I probably should have, and even, and going into it and being scared and being like, I don't know if I can do this. And then you do it. It's like, oh, maybe I am pretty good. Maybe I'm a person that could do this. Even if it wasn't for this band, I could do this professionally. Yeah. So it more was something I thought it was a challenge that I was interested in tackling. And it was also, when I started working other jobs and kind of trying to figure out how to survive, there was just something there that said, you're not done with this. Yeah. It was just some drive, something that I can't really explain. So I started, once, the band started dying down and leading up to when I quit the band, I started to kind of realizing that I had to be in the business of Doc Coyle and not just Doc Coyle from blank. Because it's, unfortunately it's like, and so many people that, I hate, this is, kind of, we'll talk about a little bit about my podcast, a lot of these themes about seeing the writing on the wall and making sure you have a lifeboat when the Titanic goes down. And, and I don't actually like to use that type of analogy for my band. So it wasn't like that. I don't think that's really.
But it's a very, very important point. I mean, nowadays, it's something I talk about a lot as well, is that you're in a band, fine. But what happens when that band disbands, or when the band is too old? Then you have yourself only. Yeah. And that's like, okay, how do you still keep yourself afloat when you don't have a band anymore? So it's so important to put all the effort, like to self-promote yourself as an individual rather than, of course the band as well, but there's still room for making your own personal brand, like you explained.
Well, the thing for me though, I think in particular, and this is fairly common because of how young people tend to get into music, was I basically graduated high school, had no real plan, and all I cared about was my band. Yeah. So I didn't have some other thing to fall back on. All I cared about was the band. So when it was coming to an end, it was like kind of like almost waking up from a dream, and realizing, oh, I don't have any true real world skills. No. Even though I actually did, I think there's a lot you do learn in this lifestyle. You just have to figure out creatively how to apply it in other fields. There are skill sets and I think resiliency we learn because we're essentially people own small businesses. Yeah. And when you're not in a big band and you're driving your own van and you're loading your own gear and you're designing merch and you're working the social media, you have to be multifaceted. So you do acquire a lot of skills. But you have to have the confidence to say, I can do other things. Yep. I'm not just stuck to this one area. Yep. But anyway, so after I left the band, I felt this kind of freedom for the first time that I can kind of just do anything. And, that's why I decided to move to Los Angeles because I was 32 years old, which kind of, I don't think people really think about it, but to move to LA to go try and make it, that's pretty old. Yeah. Usually people go, they're 21 years old and they're full of vinegar and they're ready to conquer the world. Like I said, I was like a a carton of milk that maybe was not quite bad yet, but it was almost past its prime. But it wasn't necessarily about going there to, I'm gonna do blank.
Yeah.
It was more like I didn't have a girlfriend,
Yeah.
didn't have a wife, didn't have children.
Just why not?
If I'm gonna do something like this, I lived in New Jersey my whole life.
Yeah.
Why not do it now? Why not, and so I kind of put it, on my mind, this is what I'm going to do. And without, like I said, didn't have much of a plan, just really kind of wanted to see if I could do this thing again.
Yeah.
And so basically when I moved to LA, I just started doing anything I could. You need a guitar? I'll be your guitar player. You need this,
Just being the
say
yes guy.
yes,
Yeah.
say yes to,
Yeah.
say yes to everything. Mike Arrigo from Ibanez, he was like, that's what you got. When I first met him, he's like, just say yes to everything until you basically have to say no.
Yeah.
And that was great for me. And I was starving. Mm-hmm. I was making no money, and it was rough. It was really hard. Probably the hardest thing I had done. But I kind of just, going back to what I said before about the social media thing, is I just kept, every little victory. Mm. Use the formats to display it,
Yes.
to present it. Like, so the first gig I ever played when I moved to LA was with Rob Trujillo from Metallica with Mass Mental. And it was him and this amazing bass player, Armand Cebolecho. It was Ken Schalk, who was filling in at the time, was from Candiria and Fuel. And then Whitfield Crane from Ugly Kid Joe was singing, and also Benji Webb from Skindred. And then at the show, Ozzy was at the show, and Stuart Copeland from The Police, and Duff McKagan. And that's my first show, and it kind of was like a light bulb moment where I was like, and I did that one show, and you post a few pictures over the course of a few days. It looks like you're on tour with
Exactly.
And then so I kind of realized that these mediums kind of have a power where you can really, not that isn't a great accomplishment or a really cool thing, but the mediums have a way of amplifying it and making it seem even bigger than
you can portray the picture you want.
Yeah.
And make yourself significant. Like, in
well,
the way.
not, like I said, it's not inaccurate, but it's a diligence to it. It's that if you do something cool, tell people about it.
Yeah.
And be, and so you're kind of your own press agent to a certain degree. So that's what I started doing. Everything I did, I would just try and make sure there's just keep it going. And trust me, I had periods where maybe there wasn't anything too crazy going on, but with me, I'm always working on something. You know, whether at the time, right around that time, I got a job as a columnist for VH1.com. I was a model.
Right.
I wrote for them. I was writing professionally and getting paid, paying my bills writing, and that was really cool because it got me really integrated into the music scene in a different kind of way.
Yes.
Right? It kept me close. Because I was writing for them, I was like, I had to listen to new bands.
Yeah.
I had to, and it was fun. It was like, it's like you have an excuse to like listen to metal all day. But like I said, but it also put people, made people think about me in a different way.
Yes.
It's like, he's not just that guy. He can do another thing. And, started getting a lot of attention from that. And, but like I said, things kind of just, one thing kind of led to another, not to really tie the whole bridge to where I'm now, but I certainly didn't have a great plan. I never did, really. It's very improvisational.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, I think it's very inspiring to hear because it's, it seems like I share a lot of the mentality you have because it's, at the end of the day, it's all about you, like, and where you end up. What do you want to be in 20 years? Kind of like, and it's.
I don't know.
No, we don't know, but it's a. I usually say this because it's kind of a depressive way of thinking, but at the end of the day, it's just you. It's all about you. If you just talk about God forbid, you had. Like how many albums? Like 6 albums that you did,
six full lengths and an EP.
And you in 2014 you disbanded, and you made this blog post that was like really, really real.
Yeah.
I read through it, and it seems like you were just fed up with everything in a way. Like we're the music industry in a way.
No, I was not fed up with the music industry. I took the exact opposite track, it was, there's a lot of power in fuck it.
Yeah.
And, and there's, I talk about this all the time. I listen to a podcast. There's a blog and there's a podcast from, it's called Freakonomics. They have a book, they have a blog, they have a whole bunch of things. And it was called The Upside of Quitting.
Okay.
And it talks about this idea that essentially when you engage in an endeavor, there's a, sometimes you engage in endeavor and you're in the Rolling Stones and you're just the fucking Rolling Stones and it's fine. But most things, right, there's, it starts, there's a peak, and it goes down.
Yeah.
Now, they talk about a thing, in economic terms called opportunity cost. So the amount of time you're spending doing one thing, that means the opportunity cost is that's all the time you can't do other things. And it's about, and this idea kind of became, once I did that, and I basically I had some managers at the time, and I'm still friends with them, but this is one, I remember having a conversation with them, and I was like, what do you guys think about managing me personally and helping me, get different opportunities? I think I have some potential in some areas. And they told me, they were like, listen, you're going to be so busy with God forbid, you're not going to have time to do anything else. And I was like, okay. And I was trying to basically give them a warning. I was like, listen, I have other ambitions. I want to do things. This is not enough. And the band, it was not generating enough income. It wasn't enough. I wasn't happy. And eventually I left. But once I was kind of free to do what I wanted, those instincts, because like I had a plan at that time, I was just like, I knew this wasn't right.
Yeah.
So basically, once I did that, and once you actually leave something that was half my life. I was 32 years old. We started the band when I was 16.
Yeah. That's
literally the entire identity of my adulthood.
Right.
It's kind of a traumatic thing if you think about it. But the thing is, my separation that actually took 3 or 4 years before that to lead to that point.
Yes.
So that just happened to be the break. So it took a lot of mental and emotional work to actually get there to be strong enough to be able to do that. But once you do that, then you kind of realize, you're like, okay, I can kind of do this kind of, and then leaving home. That was another, like, there's places and people and organizations have a gravity to them. And like once it's like the earth. To get off the earth, you have to use a lot of energy. You have to burn a lot of fuel. Yeah. But once you get out, you're cruising altitude, and everything is like that. And especially these things that are so big in your life that you can't imagine the world without them.
Yeah.
And then once you kind of do that, it makes you really free.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when I came out to LA, like I said, I had no money. I was like, I'm broke, but I'm all right.
Yeah.
Everything, I'm not dead, not homeless. I get, it's like I can get by. I don't need much, And then when you kind of realize like there's not that much to lose, and then that gives you kind of freedom to say, okay, well, what do I want to do with my day? And that was the most important thing to me, was not making a bunch of money, not being in some big band. It was having the freedom to be able to do what I wanted to do with my time creatively. That was the most valuable thing. And at that time, I chose to be diverse with my time. Whether I was writing, whether I was working on music, doing podcasts, doing other things, because I like mixing it up. I get very antsy doing it with repetition.
Very inspirational, I must say, because it's. At the end of the day, that's being rich right there.
Well, it is, like I said, it's a form of freedom. Unfortunately, I think there's almost freedom in poverty, as well as there's freedom in wealth, right? Like wealth gives you, hey, let's go to Dubai today. Let's go, exactly. Let's go to Switzerland or whatever. Yeah. And then there's also freedom in poverty in that, unless I think if you have children, because then
exactly.
Your actions affect other people. When you're on your own, there's a freedom in poverty because like you're traveling light.
Yeah,
it's like I'll put a backpack on. I'll go. You can do. There's. If you look at it that way, it's only. I think there's. A lot of things are just a perspective, right? So, if I don't have food, I'm starving, right? And that's bad. Starving's bad. But if I'm fasting, It's the same thing. I'm not
Yeah.
eating food, but I'm fasting. I'm making a choice.
Right.
So you can have the same circumstance, and as long as your perspective, looking at it different ways, is the only thing that changes it. But actually, I missed a point what I said before about what I wrote about leaving the band and the industry. I didn't blame the industry.
Yeah.
The point I made is that too many musicians, especially in metal, and especially from the era I came from and
Yeah.
the era right before, saw the world change from underneath them and just got angry. But being angry at things you can't control doesn't do anything except create bitterness.
Yeah.
What you have to do is say, hey, these things are going to happen whether I want them to or not. What am I going to do about it?
Just adapt. And,
Well, yeah, it sucks, but okay, things suck. Sometimes things suck. I mean, if if you were the best, horseshoe maker in 1920, and all of a sudden you see a bunch of Ford cars running around, and all of a sudden they start coming into buy the horseshoes. It's like, sorry, it's like, yeah. I mean, you got look at the cars.
Yeah.
They're coming.
Yeah.
Read, you got to figure out what the next thing is, and as you know, every 6 months there's a new. We're all on the edge of obsolescence for everything we're doing. If and so you have to constantly be.
To stay afloat, you need to adapt. Like every year, something new happens, and you need to kind of like just.
But I think that's one of the worst things that bothers me about musicians, or even I'm in the music world, so that's what I hear is just people bitching about it's the labels, it's this it's unfair. Guess what? It's always been unfair.
Thank you.
The Beatles got half their money ripped off.
Yeah.
Like early on, but when you're splitting up like $3 billion, they can rip off. You still got 1.5 billion left, so it's not that bad. But it's never been fair for musicians. There was never, there was this period, basically between, the mid '60s to like the 2000s, where a lot of people got really rich off music. Like, that was a bubble.
Yes.
Listen, actually, a lot of people are still making a lot of money off music, but it's, you can't. I don't know. I just think if that's your motivation, I just don't think this is for you. I mean, the people that are here are the people that have to play music. If they don't play, they're gonna die.
Yeah, Bad Wolves has become an insane success. I guess everything has happened this year, and you released 5 videos. You had the zombie cover that. Last time I checked, it was like 150 million views or something. It's insane. Like, what do you think is just trying to stay on track? What do you think is the key to success for a band in this day and age? When the market is oversaturated, because there's a lot of bands out there trying to reach out to the same listener. Like, do you have any tips? Like, do you?
Well, that's in the kind of cynical sense, I want to say, no, I haven't learned anything about the secret to success. But I think the main thing is that I think what Zoltan from Five Finger Death Punch is our manager.
Yes.
What he kind of refers it to as the DNA, right? So when you have a band, there's certain elements of DNA you need within that particular band.
Yeah.
To be able to get to a certain level, right? So when you see a band like Avenged Sevenfold, you say charismatic singer, band with a dynamic, a dynamic sound and a dynamic look. They understand branding. They have an audience. There's all these different, there's these things, and if you could recognize it, and he recognized it in us, he felt that we could be that next band, and in many ways, I think the model that was used is kind of more of how they do it in hip hop. So if you go back to the early '90s, it's like you had Dr. Dre, and he had a new song. Who was on it? Snoop Dogg. Yeah. And Snoop Dogg had so on Dr. Dre's first album, he featured Snoop Dogg a lot. His first Snoop Dogg album at the time was the #1, the biggest debut for album of all time. Yes. And that was because they primed an audience and said, "Hey, this guy's great," and they put the olive branch down and lift people up, and that's what Five Finger Death Punch did for us leading up to this. And then, honestly, everything that happened with the Zombie single, is basically a tragedy. Yeah. And kind of elements you can't control. And there were decisions made to donate the proceeds
Yes.
to the family, make the song a tribute, the video a tribute, and kind of put the focus on there. And what happened, I think, 20 years ago, it probably still would have happened. It just would have taken longer. But now because of virality and the way people can share, because where the song broke first really was on iTunes.
Yeah.
And that's just people buying it.
Yeah.
And so I think it came out on a Friday. And by that Tuesday, it was the #1 rock song on iTunes.
Yeah.
And within like 2 weeks, it was the #1 song on all of iTunes.
Yeah.
So that was before it was getting played on the radio.
Yeah.
Because radio is slow. They have to add,
Yes.
and it's a whole, and there's gatekeepers, but all the elements, and like when the video came out, that was, people just went, because then they're on Facebook and they're sharing, and I think Five Finger Death Punch posted the video, and I think it got 500,000 shares.
Wow.
That's just shared. That's not even views.
No. Yeah.
And so that tells you, and that's
It's like a Facebook video, or they share the YouTube link.
I can't remember. I can't remember which one, but that's when it went #1 overall. Like I literally think that, like just to give you an idea of how you galvanize an audience. But that song was already a hit.
Yeah.
The story with Dolores. And
Just to give a little perspective here, that video alone was 150 million.
Now, I mean that's just Facebook though. I mean, you're talking another.
That was the YouTube. That was 150 million.
Yeah,
I have like 60 million views on my channel in total, and that's just for this year. So it's insane.
Not even this year. It came out in
exactly February. So it's not even a year.
or something.
And it's insane how big that that thing went.
So anyway, so it's so I think it was just the combination of some obviously very unfortunate circumstances. I think a great version of that song. Like it's like sometimes people are ready for a reimagination.
Yes.
So it was just the right version.
I think it's a very honest and genuine version of the song. It's yours.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And so these things just kind of happen, right? Because if it wasn't this record label and this management team and our band and all these things, it doesn't all happen the same way. Because so another band could have had that same exact recording without the elements, and I'm sure people would have liked it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it would have done other things. That's why I say I don't know the secret to these things, because it's so difficult in this day and age to manufacture those elements artificially. That I don't think it's really that, I don't want to go out on the limb and say, well, if you just do this is because I think it's just a bunch of things had to happen by obviously a lot of things were done on purpose, but a lot of things just happened when they happened, and then you look at the other side of it, and it's because we have such a great team. It's
they took care of it in the best way possible.
Well, that, but also we're doing massive touring.
Yeah.
We're playing in front of thousands of people every day. We've been out straight. We just did Europe. We did the U.S. for about 5-6 months. We're going back to the U.S., going to Canada. Yeah. And there's just a lot of hands on the wheel, to actually quote my old manager. But I do not know the secret. Maybe Zoltan. You need to get Zoltan on here,
right?
And he'll tell you. I think he knows the secret more than
I think nowadays it's become more. It's become more of a. It's sad to say, but it's more of a quantity before quality kind of thing going with a lot of bands today, because obviously everyone's fighting about the same space. Mm-hmm. So, like you're saying, it's a lot about just the timing. Like it could be an unfortunate timing, but it's also about just have to be out there. I mean, like you said, you just put yourself out there and you joined these bands. You went to Los Angeles and you just said yes to everything.
Well, I would put a caveat with that. I said, because actually I tried to do just the pure hired gun thing. Yeah. And I remember I did a couple auditions and I didn't really like it. And I didn't, I kind of had that moment where I was like, I don't think I could play in a band I didn't like.
Yeah.
And so everything I think I played in, I thought I liked the music, I liked the people, and I saw opportunity for growth.
Yes.
And those are really the elements that brought me in. So it wasn't. So I did say, saying yes to everything. There's I guess with some exceptions. Saying yes to things that, that are like I remember I got the call from Mike Gitter at Central Media, said, "Hey, would you be interested in writing a body count song?" It's like before he got done saying the word body count, I was like,
yes.
I was screaming yes, and I cleared my week and did it, and worked on a song, and tried as like, this is an opportunity that doesn't come
you just
around.
have to take it.
Yeah, contribute to a legend. It's just it's insane. So if it's something that floats your boat, I'd say yes to everything.
Right. So not sure if you mentioned it already, but you have your own podcast now.
Yes.
That is currently rolling, called The X-Men. And the name itself kind of gives a glimpse of what it is, but can you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, so kind of going back to what you said before, what we were talking about the writing that I was doing, and because my writing really started around the subject matter of dealing with not really knowing who I was after I left my band, and kind of trying to figure out what the next thing was. And, through that, I'd been a huge podcast junkie. I still am. It's like I listen to so many podcasts and wanted to do one. I almost started one in 2012, and I recorded an interview, didn't end up getting it going. But somehow that idea kind of came to me. Like before, it's to kind of talk about branding. Like this idea, it's like, so I was like, that's a cool name. Yeah. What if I'm an ex-member? What if I talk to... So the idea was I'll talk to ex-members of bands.
Yes. I remember when you launched this, and I thought it was a really good idea.
And so, and then I started, basically talking to people about their transitions and how they... Hey, you were... My first guest was actually John Berkland, the drummer from Bad Wolves, about how he dealt with leaving Devil Driver, because he was in that band 12, 13 years too, almost as long as I was in God Forbid, and he, and that was, and I moved to LA right when he quit Devil Driver. So, and he was basically my best friend there, and and so that's kind of the framing point of the show. But I've kind of I will talk to basically anyone I want to talk to. Yeah, it doesn't have to just be that, but I think
there's just so many X-Men out there.
Yeah, and there's and I make sure to talk to industry people. Yeah. Managers, A&R people, lawyers, because I want to have that. I want it to be quasi-educational. Yes. And also a lot of those people, like I had Mike Gitter on, who's at Central Media. He was at Roadrunner. He was at Atlantic. Right. You get their transitions. So that's kind of the framing. But I'll basically talk to anyone. But it's good to have kind of a hook or something that makes your show unique, So, but more than likely though, I'd say at some point I think I will retire the kind of brand of the X-Men, because I kind of started to realize that that idea, because one of the things I've done is I've kind of done the autopsy on my old band's career. I've talked to a lot of the key figures. I'm not totally done talking to everybody. I want to talk to literally everyone that was involved with the band and kind of tell that story. And there's a bunch of people I want to talk to. But eventually, I kind of want to get out of the mind frame of just going back. Yeah. I think there's some diminishing returns there. Yes. And kind of living in that space. And although it's a really cool idea for a show, like you said, you got to adapt. You got to keep it fresh. So I'm about 2 years in, and recently it's been very tough to keep up with the schedule, with our touring schedule. But I'm definitely not stopping anytime soon. And more likely, even if I stop the name. Yeah. I will definitely keep podcasting just in different formats, come up with different shows. I love to do a show with someone else. Like I love the individual thing, but I love bouncing on ideas and having someone to work off.
Exactly. Awesome. So I listened shortly to one of the podcasts with Cal. Mm-hmm. Cal is the bass player of Bad Wolves. He's also a solar guitar player now as well. You expressed your concern about you being too open or and honest about the topics that you talk about. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that it's become a lot more dangerous now to voice your own opinion than before?
You mean because we're in the band?
Exactly. I mean, are you more reluctant of like putting your opinion out there now that you have a band and that band has a reputation and followers that follow them? And I mean, obviously people listen to you because you're in the band. And do you feel that it has become very, very transparent now, where the audience is listening to you actually more than before?
Well, I think if you're going to be in a band, and unless your band is about a very specific ideology, like Rage Against the Machine, for example.
Exactly.
So I expect Tom Morello to go on Real Time with Bill Maher and tell us his political thoughts and be, on top of his game, and that's where he's coming from. If you're Ted Nugent and your brand is, I'm the guy shooting guns and I'm Mr. Hunter and I support these, and so I'm going to go and do my thing, I think that's fine. But I think when you're in a band comprised of multiple individuals and you're in a part of an organization, I think you have a responsibility to not necessarily temper what you're saying, but just be responsible with your words. Me, I'm very opinionated, and but I don't. I think there are some people in bands that they get so wrapped up in politics that if that's what you voice all the time, it kind of overshadows what like most people. If they're gonna follow me on Twitter, I'm sure there's some people do follow me on Twitter for my opinions in politics and things like that, but probably the majority of it is people like the music.
Exactly.
And so I think I just think sometimes if you're too repetitive, you can beat people over the head, and if you have certain opinions that would really bother someone in your band or someone someone at your management or someone at your label, and you just don't care. I think there's also that element of maybe turning off some of your fans. Because the things it's even if I disagree with a fan might come from politically or something, I don't think it has anything to do with why we can't be friends.
No, exactly.
Why we can't.
For a lot of people, it's black or white.
It's becoming like that now, where people feel like there's a line drawn in the sand.
Exactly.
And I do not feel that way. I feel like that's the biggest problem currently, more than any other issue. I think is the tenor of our discourse, and polarization is the number one problem I think going on right now. So I'm going to do everything. So it's this balance between trying to be honest, but not beating people over the head with something, or framing things in a way. Because the thing is, I think I'm probably lean to the left, but I do think I have a centrist mind where I really do try and look at things from everyone's perspective. That even if I disagree with a particular ideology or opinion, I can still see where you're coming from.
Exactly.
It's not like you're an idiot. No, I see where you're coming from. I would rather do this, but I don't think you're a bad person because you think that. And that's, I think, the most difficult thing for people now is they kind of they give the least charitable ascription to whomever they're disagreeing with, that they assume they're evil or that
or the band are either good or sucks. I mean, it's very black and white. I mean, it's become like that. It's nice to hear that you try to keep an open mind. We should probably talk about your guitars then. I mean, you brought them. So you've always been kind of like playing ESP, or at least for a long time.
Well, so here's the interesting thing. So I bought, my brother Dallas and I bought these LTD M guitars back in...
The M2 or?
This was back in like 99.
Okay.
I don't know if they were M, but they were LTD M guitars with the whammy bar. And those are the first ESPs we bought, and that's right when God forbid started touring, and kind of you get a record deal, and all of a sudden, hey, you want some ESPs? So we started working with them in like 2000, 2001, and so that was just our company, and that's all I really played until around 2009, 2010, and then kind of that's kind of like when things kind of died down with the band, and I didn't really have. When you're not really super active, there's really no reason to like, hey, send me a bunch of guitars and for everyone. So I kind of didn't really feel like I was moving forward there, and the guy I was working with had left the company. So I kind of just was a free agent, and just kind of, for the first time in my life, trying different guitars.
Yeah.
So I tried a bunch of different stuff, and it was really cool because I kind of got to learn a little bit. But I'll be completely honest, and this is probably bad for being on your channel because I'm just not a guitar nerd or gear nerd. I know enough about enough, and I learn kind of when I have to, and usually kind of lean on the opinions and expertise of people a lot smarter and put more time into it than I do. But I was trying a bunch of different things out. But when I moved to LA, this guy Chris Canella, over who just started working at ESP, and he was my guy at EVH. And just really supportive, and also, and Tony Rouser actually just recently took over for Chris. They were just so supportive, and when I came, they weren't even like, "Hey man," they were just, bros, just guys, and I'm sure you understand this about the industry. It's, the gear is great, but all the top companies make good gear.
Yes.
No one's like anyone's making crap. But it's about the relationships.
Yes.
Thank
you so much for saying that, because that's the one and only, basically.
Yeah, and you want to be with people that support what you're doing. And the thing is, like, when I left God Forbid, one thing I did was I reached out to every company that I'd been working with. I said, hey, let you know I'm leaving the band, and just wanted to see if you still want me to stay on board, if you still. And literally every single company was like, listen, we work with you. We don't care what band you're in. And during the years where I wasn't, even though I was always busy doing something, I wasn't necessarily touring a lot or had a lot of high exposure gigs, I maintained the relationships, and like I said, because that's really what it's about. I mean, listen, it's great to get free gear. No one's gonna be mad to get some great gear for free or cheaper than would be otherwise. And not for nothing, you look at things like that you use a lot, like picks and strings. Like, you need that stuff. That is a necessity. That is so the companies that help with that stuff is and for me that's Dunlop for picks and D'Addario for strings, and that's like the gold standard as far as I'm concerned. So I'm very, very lucky in that regard. But going back to the ESP thing. So
can you take one out and just hold it in front of the camera?
Ooh.
So is this your main guitar for Bad Wolves?
So this is the first one I got, and this is a ESP E2 FR7, and it's loaded with Lundgren M7 pickups, which are the Meshuggah, the Meshuggah signature.
It's a great
pickups.
pickup. And
that was essentially the Bad Wolves stuff was all recorded with a Ibanez K7.
Okay.
That was also loaded with these pickups. Actually, uncovered ones, so it probably sounds a little different because they're covered. Because this guitar was originally housed with EMGs, so these covered ones are basically meant to fit EMG housings. And then I had them block the trem so it only goes down.
Okay. And
then I got rid of the tone knob, moved the volume down here because the way I pick, it always gets in the way.
It is that spot there. It's very close. I've never seen it that close. Actually, it's. But
anyway, but I wanted to basically get a guitar that was the most similar that ESP made to the guitar that was used to record all the Bad Wolves stuff, because the tone on the record is very, very distinct. And it was really important to match that. And this is the first one I got, and this guitar is fucking incredible. It plays so well. I mean, the Lundgrens were actually took a lot to get used to because they are completely unforgiving. And they're.
I mean, it's a big change between active pickups like the EMGs and passive.
I haven't really been playing active pickups too much. I have some bare knuckles, some of my other guitars, but these are even more sensitive. And they're extremely percussive, and you play light, it's going to be light. You play hard, it's going to be, and so, and every little movement, like a little squeak is very, very obvious. And part of the reason why I use the trem I actually do some dive bombs and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but it was the tuning is actually here. I'll get the other one. This is the new one
It's nice.
that I got with the
It's like a maple
which
top
is
there.
is this the reverse? What's the reverse headstock?
The one you're holding.
See, I don't know anything about guitars. I was trying to tell you guys. so this is actually the same guitar, but just the 2000. Is it? No, it's the 18 model. I guess. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, that's like a what do you call it? A quilted maple.
Yeah, quilted maple, and it's what's it called? It's turquoise burst.
Nice.
I think what it is. And so this it's basically the same guitar, but just the newer model. And
reversed headstock.
Yes, reverse headstock, and it has the new Lundgren Black Heaven pickups, which I guess are based on the M7s, but blended with another kind of pickup. But they're a little bit livelier, a little stringier.
Okay.
Different sound, but also very, very cool. But I just kind of wanted to mix it up and just kind of try them out. But I was saying the reason why I got the trem is because I was so the tuning is pretty low. It's the kind of weird open tuning. It's G, C, G, C, F, G, C.
Shit.
So, but being tuned to G, I was just nervous about having a fixed bridge guitar and going out of tune. I wanted something where it just wouldn't move.
Yeah.
So that was the idea. And these guitars are incredible. And I do the same thing. And also, this is not industry standard, but since ESP likes
It's a satin neck. Yeah.
well, they sand down the neck.
That's nice.
This is not industry standard. You got to be Doc Coyle, cool guy,
that's cool.
to get this. So if you're a cool guy, you do this or learn how to do it yourself. I don't know how to do it because I told you I'm stupid about guitars.
Those are nice guitars. So
I love them.
What do you actually use? Like, do you have any idea what you're using live?
Yes, well, yes and no. Because actually, the album was done with the Axe Effects, and so I'm using a Kemper profile of an Axe Effects tone.
Interesting.
Of basically the tone that's on on the record, or a similar tone to that. And a guy named Max Karen made that brilliant guy. And and I run it through my EVH half stack as a power section. I still love the EVH stuff, and I would prefer to use a real amp live.
Yep.
But considering we don't really have a lot of crew and we're still kind of working our stuff, when you're doing what we're doing and you need to get on and off stage really quickly, it's just so easy. It takes me 2 seconds. I unplug two things. I'm on the stage. I'm off the stage, and it's consistent.
So do you work after do you play after click track so you have everything figured out by MIDI, or do you switch? Or
eventually, I would love to. Switching automatically, because I definitely do quite a bit of toe tapping. There's a lot of tonal shifts and effects, in the band, and so it can be a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
I would like to do that, but like I said, I'm stupid. I don't know how MIDI works.
It's not about stupidity. It's
I'm ignorant.
It's priorities. It's like when I grew up. It's instead of becoming a good player, you kind of try and cover it with buying more expensive gear.
Is that really?
It's kind of like what you're doing still.
You're sponsored by
kind of like doing.
You're sponsored by Coca-Cola, right?
Oh, that's fine. I don't give a shit. So I have on my YouTube channel. I have something called YouTube membership. So I have members to my channel. People can subscribe.
So you make extra content
and extra cash.
Well,
very important. But I make extra content for my members, of course, like live streams and.
Is that through Patreon or?
It's not. YouTube have their own thing now, but it's similar to Patreon.
Okay.
So people can, I have lessons and shit like that's just for them, and they also have an opportunity to ask my guests specific questions. So I have 2 questions from my members to you.
See, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
What did you? And this is probably out there because I was with that. What did you produce like the guitars on the Haunted record, the last Haunted record?
It's a mixture of me and Russ Russell.
What is it? Because it's I think it's like the best tone.
Oh, really? Thank you so much.
It's
a mixture of Randall Satan, which is my amplifier, and I think it's a mixture between that and an X8 XFX signal.
Like how many tracks?
It's just 2.
Just 2?
Yeah, it's just 2, but reamped in a mix. So I like having just 2 tracks because it's more live.
Yeah. So who has the tighter the tighter wrist. You were Jensen.
I think that Jensen has the reputation of being tighter, but I think I'm just a little bit better.
You heard it
I'm just
here.
kidding. Jensen is a riff master, and I mean our styles are so different. Like it's like
which is cool.
He's very of a flowy guy.
Yeah.
And I'm very, I'm from like the John Petrucci style, very exact and alternate picking, and so it's very different. But in that sense, I think it makes for a better end product because it makes everything wider.
Yeah.
Like even on a live situation, if you have too tight of guitar players, it's just going to be
Here's the thing, though.
too good.
John Petrucci School. I didn't hear too many solos in the neck position on that last record, so.
I didn't even listen to the latest record, so.
No, your latest record.
You mean the?
Are there any on the neck pickup? Because that's Petrucci.
There is maybe when I have when I have the energy to just make that switch. But I like the bridge pickup a lot. It's usually the neck pickup's just to cover up your mistakes, in my opinion. Well, or when you really want to like.
I've never been smart enough to do that on a shreddy part, so I just do it when I want to get smooth.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, it's or clean sounds.
Well, I want to rip off Michael Ackerfeld. So.
Exactly. So okay, I have the questions from my member. This is from Nick Rooney, and he's okay. As a fan of metalcore, I'm curious. What were the downsides of being in a metalcore band, if any? How did other non-metalcore bands treat and view the scene?
So that's actually I love that question because I think God Forbid was a band that started out as a metalcore band. Yeah. That I think eventually we evolved into just being a metal band.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we never lost that tag, and so through those years, so we went.
So is metalcore a bad tag?
No, I think whatever whatever hot button subgenre that's out when you're out, eventually will become toxic. Yeah. So if you're new metal and new metal's out, then you eventually will not want to be called new metal. If you're gent, when gent is out, you're gonna say we're not gent, we're just a
progressive,
right? Or whatever. So it's not really about that. It's just that essentially what happened was when we started playing. There was not a scene for what we were doing. We would play with, a band. We played with Hatebreed, who was, are they metalcore? Are they hardcore? What is this kind of, something like that? Or we would play with Cradle of Filth. That's literally like So it was, and then so while we were coming up, this scene came up, which you might want to call metalcore, and then we started while we were in it. We didn't feel like we belonged. No. So I remember we did a tour in Europe called the Hell on Earth tour. And it was mostly European metalcore bands. It was Heaven Shall Burn, Maroon, Cataract, and even like we did tours in the States. And to us, we felt that the scene. This is not to diss any of those bands, but we felt that there had become a formula, and it was like, here's the breakdown. Yes. Here's the At the Gates riff. Yep. And we weren't that band. We thought we were trying to write songs, and we felt much more comfortable when we would go on tour with Anthrax or Machine Head or Arch Enemy than when we would play with metalcore bands. So it became the situation where as we sort of kind of wanted to get away from that scene, a lot of those fans that liked the band for a more metalcore sound didn't really come along, and the main metal fans kind of still saw the band as like, oh, they're in that scene. They're not a real, So it was this thing where we kind of lost on both ends.
Do you think that is the reason why there was a dip for the band? Or?
I mean, I think it contributed, but I think it's also how it can be difficult when you're dealing with labels. Like, I'll give an example. Like, Lamb of God came up at the exact same time as us, but they were never categorized as a metalcore band. Yeah. Even though sonically there wasn't that much different. But there was definitely, like I said, but we were a little more out of that scene. Same thing with Shadows Fall. Shadows Fall, Killswitch, Unearth, we were more in that hardcore scene. But they got the kind of the relevance and the notoriety of being a capital M metal band.
Yes.
And whatever. But I'm saying, it's just interesting how that works. But from the outsider looking in, it's just, well, God forbid, they're a metalcore band, of course. And it's but the evolution kind of, it's, unless you're tracking it perfectly and seeing how a band But this happens with, how many bands are quote unquote deathcore and just
Yes.
kind of evolve into death metal bands. Like I look at Job for a Cowboy.
Yeah.
To me, the better they got,
Yeah.
the less popular they became.
Yeah.
The more interesting and technical and,
Yeah.
and refined their music became. Poison the Well is another band that was very straightforward, kind of screamo core.
Yeah.
And then they started making these really eclectic, noisy, interesting records, and then the crowd goes away. So it's, change can be difficult, especially when you're associated with a.
I mean, I think it's
genre.
because the attention span today is just shorter. I mean, people just like, oh, okay, did not like. They don't really give the bands the same chance anymore.
I don't agree with that. I think you go back, look at Anthrax. When they had those lean years when John Bush was in the band. People just didn't. The band went a different direction, and the people didn't come along.
But then again, that was back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, how is it? I mean, the Anthrax fans are the same guys.
But if they would have kept John Bush, would they be doing as well as they are? Probably not.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Is that I think it's not. I think it's about change.
Yeah.
And being associated with a very particular subgenre. So it's not you. I think you're right. I think maybe the cycles move quicker.
Yeah.
But look at the mid '90s when all the thrash bands were breaking up and disbanding because the scene kind of dried up, and it's like, and then no one wants to be thrash. It's like we're hard rock.
Yeah, exactly.
We're groove metal. We're whatever. And that's what you have to do to survive a lot of the time.
I think I had one more, and then we're off.
2 whole questions, baby.
There were more. I just picked 2. So don't. So it's fine. I had more questions, but I knew this interview would kind of work itself.
Yeah.
So I usually just pick 2. So from Pete Rogers, we kind of covered this already. But first off, I think that what Bad Wolves have done for Dolores with the Zombie Proceeds was an incredible gesture. But my question is, even despite the tragic event, did they expect Zombie to go as big as it did? And was it a difficult decision to release it? Providing the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I think once, because all that stuff kind of happened behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Because the song was going to be on the record.
And she was supposed to be on the song as well.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thing, was she passed away the day before she was supposed to record.
Oh, wow. So
why she was in London. And I had no idea about any of this. This was all behind the scenes. And then I was actually, it's crazy, I was in London when she actually died with my girlfriend, just coincidentally on vacation. And found out everything happened, and then it was said, hey, we're gonna donate the money. And I think there was this thing of, she chose this version.
Yeah.
And I think that matters.
Of course.
And I think I think there are ethical concerns about what do you do in this scenario where it wasn't like, if nothing happened, this song would have been on the record. It would have just been another song. But I think, I think in many ways, the version of the songs, became something cathartic for people. And it became, and the song has a weight to it now. Like, we play it live, it's like people are crying.
Yeah.
It's like a whole thing, and it's almost
become its own thing.
Yeah, and the context of how, and I think this is, interesting the way we perceive poetry evolves over time. Listen, I think there's no way to ever think about it, and how things turned out and not have conflicted emotions. Ever. I don't think that'll ever really change. But I think the world is a better place that the song was there. And I think the truth is, it probably puts a lot of focus on her legacy. And it will.
Exactly.
And there's no way to.
It's more of a tribute.
And I hope that's how it is.
Yes. From an outside perspective, I think the whole band thing and the story. I think the story is important to understand the context and why it was released, because it's, like you said, it's not an easy decision. Like, how do you like, what do you do in a situation like this?
Listen, I think it's very easy to be cynical about motivations. But like I said, I mean, raised a lot of money for the family,
Yeah.
thankfully, and and that's really, and it's also if people are concerned, publishing that goes to the songwriters.
Yeah, exactly.
So we didn't write the song.
Exactly.
We're also not collecting on it. So it's we're collecting a lot of plaques, but the actual the financial reward is not really going to us. So hopefully that can quell a little bit of the cynicism. But I think that's just, we live in a culture now that is a critical culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's, everyone has a voice. Everyone
Yes.
will say something, and a lot of it isn't nice, and a lot of it's going to be questioning motives, and I get that. Like I don't hate anyone or blame anyone for thinking that, because guess what? There's a lot of decisions made in this world for money and for advancement and all that stuff. So it's it's okay. I'm not going to be angry at someone. I get it.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much.
No problem.
Pure pleasure to have you here, and thank you for taking off a little bit of your schedule here.
I had nothing scheduled.
Oh, really? Awesome. Okay.
I was gonna be in my hotel
Okay, great.
watching Making the Murderer.
Be sure to check out Doc's podcasts, X-Men. I'm going to link it up here or down there or somewhere. And thank you so much for watching, guys. Hope you liked this video. And yeah, I'm very happy to have him. He's the first international, not really international, but like North American guest on my show.
I'm international. Don't listen to him.
We're all international, I guess. But yeah, so I'm very proud to have you here. It's a pure pleasure. Thank you so much for
Great
coming.
time. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Awesome.
Thanks, man. That was
Thank
fun.
you.
That's fun. We can talk all day.
That's the problem. It's like you have to quit somewhere. It's like I have questions.